Tonight, as we close our eyes, we will imagine the stars not just as points of light, but as a vast, whisperless ocean. For years, we have found the deep silence of the cosmos to be peacefully comforting. But what if this stillness is actually a cosmic warning? In a universe so ancient and boundless, it is almost impossible to think that we are the only intelligent life. And yet, there is no echo, no gentle whisper reaching us from deep space. This chilling void leads us straight to the heart of the dark forest theory. Imagine you are in a pitch-black forest where every civilization is a silent hunter, hiding in the shadows. In this unknown realm, making a sound is not an act of bravery, but a fatal mistake. However, humanity has been practically shouting into this dark forest for decades. Are we alone, or is someone holding their breath and watching us? If you wish to drift off to sleep while exploring these dark secrets of space with my whispers, you can subscribe to my channel and silently join me on this endless journey. Now let us return to that deep and heavy silence of the night sky. This silence might at first awaken a sense of profound loneliness within us. But when we gaze a little closer into this massive darkness, we realize that the stillness transforms into a colossal cosmic question, because the universe is vast, beyond the very limits of our imagination. Even in our own home, the Milky Way, there are hundreds of billions of stars and countless mysterious worlds quietly orbiting them in the dark. Just imagine, trillions of such galaxies are silently floating through the endless fabric of space. In such a boundless cosmic ocean, the idea that life is confined solely to our tiny blue planet is a probability as small as a single grain of sand. Scientists have been chasing this cosmic riddle for years. If the universe is truly this immense, and life is so eager to bloom, then why can't we hear even the slightest whisper reaching out to us from eternity? When this burning question echoed in the mind of the famous physicist Enrico Fermi years ago, the scientific world was introduced to a staggering concept, the Fermi Paradox. What he asked was actually terrifyingly simple. If the universe is so crowded, then where is everybody? This is not just an ordinary scientific curiosity. It is the profound existential chill we feel when staring into the dark night sky. If we are not alone in this colossal cosmos, why is there no gentle whisper reaching out to us from the dark? Why don't we see a clear signal slipping through the stars, or the faint shadow of a massive alien structure? Furthermore, our technology is becoming more flawless with every passing day. We turn our giant radio telescopes to the deepest corners of the dark, continuously beaming hopeful messages into the void. Yet the echo we so desperately wait for is replaced every single time by a deafening and heavy silence. For some, this endless tranquility is the greatest proof that we are entirely alone on the cosmic stage. But for those who understand the nature of the dark, there might be a far more unsettling truth hiding behind this silence. Perhaps the real issue is not that outer space is desolate and empty. Perhaps there truly is someone out there in the infinite dark, but absolutely no one dares to make a sound from within the shadows. Right at this very moment, the bright picture of the cosmos in our mind slowly begins to fade into shadow. The universe unfolding before our eyes is no longer a warm and friendly embrace, but an endless, eerie hunting ground, filled with the unknown. If outer space is truly such a ruthless place, then that deafening silence is not a sign of absence, but a flawless strategy for survival. Imagine yourself walking completely alone through a pitch-black forest. You feel it deep in your bones that you are not alone behind the trees, yet there is not a single sound, because in this absolute darkness, a single cry, or the snap of a dry twig, is like lighting a fatal beacon that draws the hunter's cold gaze straight to you. Now, look at the freezing stillness of the universe through this chilling framework. Perhaps countless magnificent civilizations are quietly breathing behind the stars, but they all remain loyal to a universal rule, a terrifying oath of silence. They are simply hiding in the shadows. This massive calm in the night sky is not the reflection of loneliness, but the most concrete proof of universal fear and the raw instinct to survive. And this possibility forever changes the way we look up at the stars. The famous question echoing in our minds is no longer, "Are we alone in the universe?" It is replaced by a much colder, much darker anxiety. Are we too visible right now from the depths of space? Because in this colossal and silent forest, being noticed might never be the harbinger of a happy ending. And when we finally face this chilling thought, we suddenly realize with a shiver just how reckless humanity has been against the pitch-black void of space. For decades, the eager radio waves we have hurled into the great emptiness and the relentless electromagnetic pulse of our world are practically us shouting our exact coordinates into a massive dark forest, but whose cold sensors are catching these naive whispers light years away. And even more terrifying, what kind of face will turn toward us from the dark once the message is received? Perhaps on this grand cosmic stage, for billions of years, everyone has been holding their breath, silently watching each other. Yet absolutely no one dares to take that first step. We humans, by our very nature, are so accustomed to speaking, connecting, and touching the unknown. But this endless void might not share our innocent habits. Perhaps the only absolute rule for surviving among the stars is to remain completely invisible, as if you never existed at all. If this dark rule is true, then the freezing stillness of the universe is actually a colossal warning left just for us, a cosmic message written not with words, but with an absolute terrifying nothingness. Just imagine, since the dawn of time, countless civilizations just like ours might have shined brightly on that glorious stage, only to be suddenly extinguished. Perhaps they brought about their own end, or perhaps they were silently wiped out by those ruthless hunters waiting in the dark. The only ones left behind were those who mastered the art of hiding. Now, as you take that final step into sleep, softly ask yourself, where does humanity stand in this massive dark forest? Are we merely a lucky species that simply hasn't been noticed yet? Perhaps this monumental silence is a tranquil invitation presented to us, urging us to cross the deepest boundaries within our own minds. Because sometimes the most deafening truths in the universe are not hidden in the words that are spoken, but in the profound silence that is kept forever. The dark forest theory is one of the most staggering, yet hypnotizing concepts attempting to make sense of our cosmic silence. According to this premise, that glorious universe we look up to is actually a pitch-black, colossal hunting ground. Every civilization within this forest is merely a silent hunter seeking refuge in the shadows, holding their breath to survive. No one wants to light their lantern and reveal their position, because that beam of light instantly transforms into a target. At first, this thought might seem too pessimistic to our minds, perhaps even like a sci-fi dystopia. But when we softly ponder the freezing immensity of the universe, its boundless unknowns, and the unimaginable dangers it holds, the pieces suddenly fall into their chilling places, because you can never know in advance whether a signal reaching out to you from that pitch-black darkness is a compassionate, friendly hand or a devastating weapon. And on a universal scale, this uncertainty is a fatal risk that simply cannot be taken. Take a step back and look at our own human history, at those dusty pages. Even we have always taken our steps with suspicion whenever we encountered the unknown. And more often than not, we turned our fear into aggression. The unyielding and cold law of nature has always worked the same way. The weak were erased, while the strong remained standing, not just on our world, but within the cold fabric of the universe. There are only two ways to survive. You must either be invincible or entirely invisible. That is exactly why all other civilizations breathing behind the stars choose that deafening silence just to see another dawn. None of them dare to take that first step. None of them dare to call out into the dark. Because the phrase, "I am here," shouted into the void, is actually a terrifying invitation. The most dangerous, the most fatal whisper in the universe, meaning nothing else but, "You can find me." Right at this moment of cold realization, the reason why we have never received a single whisper from the stars becomes strikingly and terrifyingly clear. Perhaps everyone in that colossal void strictly refuses to speak. Perhaps trillions of ears are turned toward the dark, holding their breath, just listening. But absolutely no one dares to answer back into the shadows, just like those invisible hunters pacing slowly through the pitch-black woods. Everyone feels the chilling presence of the others deep in their bones, yet no one moves a muscle, because in this ruthless cosmic game, the first one to make a move will be the first one to fall. Of course, this possibility is a profoundly unsettling, almost suffocating feeling for our warm, connection-seeking human nature, because we carry the urge to walk into the unknown, to explore and embrace the universe, right in our very genes. However, the laws of that dark ocean might be written far differently and far more strictly than our naive rules. Perhaps the one and only immutable law of survival in that eternity is to remain eternally mute. If this bitter truth holds, then those hopeful radio waves we enthusiastically launch into the sky are not innocent acts of discovery, but colossal, potentially fatal gambles, because these signals are blindly cast calls, and we can never know whose slumber they might disturb in the endless dark. What is even more chilling is that this terrifying scenario is not merely a philosophical assumption. In the ancient fabric of the universe, the limits of technology can easily crush our wildest imaginations. Everything we deem impossible could be a mere child's play for a civilization millions of years older than ours, and this unimaginable abyss of power silently declares the victor of any potential encounter in the dark, long before it even begins. If you were to encounter a civilization millions of years more advanced than your own in the depth of the dark, their true intentions would no longer matter, because their ability to wipe you from the cosmic stage would happen far faster than your mind could even process a greeting. This is why rolling the dice in that endless void is never a logical choice. The deafening stillness of the universe is not a random emptiness, but a cold, rational preference made for the sake of survival. Yet in the dim corners of our minds, a heavier question now echoes. If everyone has embraced this absolute silence, then who will whisper that very first word? And will that first sound tearing through the dark be a sign of magnificent courage, or the final fatal mistake of an entire species? As humanity, we have been relentlessly explaining ourselves to that great void for decades. Through our television broadcasts and eager radio waves, we are practically shouting our existence in the middle of a blind darkness, holding a burning torch, without ever knowing who this call reaches or what kind of awakening it might trigger. Perhaps our frequencies simply haven't hit anyone in that colossal void yet. Perhaps those who heard us simply disregarded these noisy children for now. Or what is far more chilling, those ancient hunters in the dark have already heard us and are merely watching from the shadows with patience. This endless uncertainty is the greatest torture for the human mind, because the cold anxiety of not knowing what you will face is far more poisonous than pure fear itself. The dark forest theory feeds exactly from this most vulnerable, most anxious room of our minds. Everyone is mortally afraid of what the other might do. Therefore, the most flawless armor is to become invisible, as if you never existed at all. And the thought of this being true forever changes how we look up at the sky. When we look at that starry night now, we no longer see just peace. We see the heavy philosophy of hiding. If this theory is correct, we are not safe spectators watching the forest from the outside. We are directly inside the danger-filled heart of that dark forest itself. And the only way to survive in this wilderness might be nothing other than remaining silent. If the dark forest theory is indeed a reality, then humanity is still a very young, naive presence in this ancient, silent woodland. Perhaps we are simply a lucky species, drifting through the shadows, unnoticed by the great hunters of the void. But this shielded ignorance cannot last forever, because as our technology advances, our cosmic visibility increases at a haunting pace. Every radio wave we hurl into space, our satellite broadcasts and those excited messages are essentially flares we unknowingly fire, revealing our position in the pitch-black night. At this very point, we must ask what it truly means to be noticed. If we ever catch a signal from deep space, will it be a miraculous discovery or a cold warning of the beginning of the end? Remember, another civilization's desire to communicate does not guarantee their friendly intentions. Perhaps it is merely a frozen test sent to confirm the exact coordinates of the prey. For a civilization millions of years older, analyzing or instantly erasing a species still in its infancy could be nothing more than a routine procedure. We often look at the stars with a childlike hope, wanting to prove we are not alone, seeking connection. But from the dark forest perspective, this pure hope might be our greatest weakness, because in this ruthless cosmic system, there is no room for the concept of trust. Every civilization perceives the other as a potential and absolute threat, and until that threat is entirely removed, a true state of security can never exist. In this wilderness, the most logical move is either to strike or to hide forever. But to strike, one must first see the target clearly, which means the visible one is always the one standing before the barrel. Humanity is currently walking a tightrope, unconsciously caught between these two sharp options. While we burn with the desire to explore, we have yet to grasp the dark prices that being noticed might demand. Not knowing how other intelligences think, or their fears and ultimate goals, is our greatest vulnerability. If that long-awaited signal ever arrives, will we be able to interpret it correctly? Or will we misunderstand that cosmic whisper and take one more step toward the edge of the abyss? Perhaps the real issue is not the answers, but the fact that we have started asking these dangerous questions, because every being walking through this silent forest must never forget that every move has a consequence. We must gaze into the universe not just with curiosity, but with profound caution, because that deafening silence is not just an empty void. It might be the final warning for our very survival. The dark forest concept is not merely a cold scientific explanation. It is a profound and philosophical confrontation that shakes humanity's tiny place in the universe, because this theory whispers to us that the vast cosmos may not always be a friendly place. This perspective completely flips the warm and hopeful window we are so used to. We often imagine the sky as a massive playground waiting to be explored, finding new worlds, tracing the signs of life among distant stars, and one day sharing that first greeting with another intelligence is one of humanity's most magnificent dreams of thousands of years. Yet this shimmering dream may have a dark side hidden behind it. If the universe is indeed that eerie dark forest, then to venture out for discovery also means to put your own existence in peril, because every tiny bit of information reached, every new step taken, actually increases our cosmic visibility a little more. And according to the ruthless logic of this theory, to be visible is the greatest risk one can take for survival. This creates a deep conflict with the very core of human nature, because despite everything, we simply want to learn and to know, to understand the unknown, to push boundaries and discover new worlds, is our most fundamental instinct for survival. Yet the vast and cold nature of the universe may not be in harmony with this human urge. Perhaps the only rule for existing in that endless void is learning to restrain this relentless curiosity. It is a difficult thought to embrace, because it implies that humanity must suppress one of its most core characteristics, its very desire to explore. However, looking back at our own history, we see that survivors are not always the strongest, but the most cautious and adaptable. Perhaps the same ancient rule prevails in that deep silence between the stars. Those who remain quieter, those who act with more caution and hide themselves best in the shadows, may be the ones who endure until the end of time. In this case, the boundless silence we encounter is not a sign of absence, but the result of a conscious and collective choice. Everyone is there, but no one wants to be noticed. Everyone watches, but no one makes that tiny whisper to reveal their presence. We no longer see just points of light when we look at the sky. We think of the hidden, massive possibilities, the invisible beings and thousands of untold stories. And most chillingly, we don't have a single piece of data to prove the opposite of this theory. The universe is silent, and this silence is a massive message waiting to be deciphered, or perhaps it is a final warning that should never be touched. Right here, we face the most critical decision for humanity. How should we move forward in this dark forest? Should we seal our lips and sink into silence, or should we continue to shout into the void? This choice is not just a scientific curiosity, but the heaviest existential decision that will define the future of our species. Perhaps the deafening silence of the universe is more than just a mystery. That silence is the greatest responsibility placed upon our shoulders regarding how we choose to exist in this colossal forest. Perhaps the real issue is not whether other intelligences exist in the vast universe or why they remain so silent. Perhaps the truly burning question is exactly what we are doing right now, because humanity may have been breaking that ancient cosmic silence for a long time without even realizing it. Radio waves scattered uncontrollably into space, the echoes of our television broadcasts in the sky, military signals, and those messages we excitedly launched into the void. Each of these is a fingerprint whispering Earth's fragile existence to the deepest corners of the dark forest. While we look up at the sky, hoping for an answer, we may have already joined that great conversation, and this cry of ours may have already reached much further than we ever imagined. Think about this for a moment. If the universe is indeed that dangerous dark forest, what do our signals truly mean? This is like shouting at the top of your lungs while revealing your position in the pitch black night. And we can never know what has heard us in that bottomless void, or which ears are turned toward us. Perhaps there is truly nothing. But what if someone has already heard us and is just silently waiting for the right moment to act? What is most unsettling is that we continue these risky calls with an even greater appetite every single day. This is not just an innocent desire for discovery. It is like persistently pounding on a door we do not know, and we can never predict what is hiding in the darkness behind that door. The most striking part is that this process has already begun. Whether we realize it or not, Earth's electromagnetic trace continues to ripple into the depths of space like a wave, and this invisible trail may one day be noticed by an absolute power. If this is true, then the famous question evolves into a single point. Are we a hunter capable of hiding in this wild forest, or a vulnerable target that has already given itself away? What if that deep silence is not a desolate emptiness as we imagine? What if someone has already noticed our frail existence? This possibility may seem distant and exaggerated at first, but when we consider the mind-boggling scale of the universe, it is impossible to ignore it entirely. As humanity, we have been dropping our messages into the dark waters of space for only a few centuries. These signals, traveling at the speed of light, ripple like waves toward the star systems around us. And with every passing year, they reach even more remote, more unknown corners of the cosmos. If these whispers of ours ever strike an advanced civilization, all it takes for them to notice us is for them to be listening to the dark at that very moment And perhaps this is a scenario that has already unfolded, perhaps somewhere far beyond our reach. Someone has already captured those first radio signals we ever sent. But the truly burning question here is not whether they noticed us. It is what they did once they did. Because after this threshold, we no longer have any control. If there is a civilization millions of years ahead of us, our existence might be just a cold piece of data, or a potential threat to them, or perhaps a completely insignificant detail, yet the most chilling possibility is that they perceive us as an absolute risk, because according to the logic of the dark forest, every unknown entity is a potential danger that must be eliminated. In this case, being noticed is not a wonderful discovery. It means becoming a direct target. And perhaps this is the real reason why no one speaks in the universe, because those who once spoke might have been silenced forever. This terrifying thought illuminates the deafening stillness of the universe in a much darker light. Perhaps this silence is merely the silence of the survivors. Perhaps those who once spoke in that great void are no longer there, and only those who have mastered the art of being mute remain. If this is true, then we, as humanity, may currently be breaking that sacred silence, and this could carry a risk of destruction far greater than we imagined. We are moving blindly before fully understanding the laws of this wild forest, and perhaps the most dangerous situation is to draw the attention of those great hunters without even realizing it. If we have indeed been noticed one day, it is impossible for us to predict the consequences, but this possibility alone is enough to change the way we look at the stars forever. Now we no longer see just points of light in the sky. We see those dark possibilities. And what is most unsettling is that none of these scenarios are entirely impossible. Perhaps the most unsettling possibility is not that we haven't been noticed yet. Perhaps we are simply too late to the stage of this ancient forest. The universe has existed for billions of years, and we are like uninvited guests joining this massive story. In its very final seconds, it has been only a blink of an eye since humanity took the key of technology in its hand, and even less since we sent our first frail whispers into space. If there are other civilizations in that infinite void, it is inevitable that they emerged and thrived millions, or even billions of years before us. This means they may have reached their peak, spread across galaxies, and perhaps made their harshest decisions for survival long ago. Perhaps the universe was once teeming with life, but the ruthless sieve of time left behind only the most cautious. Those who hid the best, the visible ones, were erased one by one, and only those who turned hiding into an art form remained. We may not have realized this cold truth yet. We are still trying to explore with a childlike curiosity, desperately launching signals into that great void and waiting for an answer. Yet this might be the most fatal mistake one could make in that dark forest, because the rules of the game may be written far more harshly, far more sharply than our naive guesses. This possibility forces humanity to question its tiny place in the cosmos once more. If we are indeed too late, the great drama of the universe may have been performed and finished long before we arrived. Perhaps we are merely witnessing the closing credits of this magnificent story. In this case, the deep silence we encounter is not a beginning. It is a tragic conclusion. Perhaps the universe is no longer silent. It has simply stopped speaking long ago. And this stillness is a tired reflection of the great storms that passed in the past. If this is true, every move we make, every step we take carries a much heavier meaning, because we might be one of the rare species daring to break that ancient silence. This situation is both a massive opportunity and an irreversible risk of destruction. Now, the real issue is not the existence of other civilizations, but our role in this wild forest. Will we be among those who sink into silence, or will we continue to shout into the great void? And if we choose to speak, are we truly ready for the dark consequences that this cry might bring? When we weigh all these staggering possibilities in our minds, we inevitably face that burning question. What should we do now? Should we continue to hurl our signals into the deep silence of the cosmos, or should we learn that ancient and protective stillness? There is no simple answer to this, because it is not just a technical choice. It is the heaviest existential decision that will define the future of our species. On one hand, there is the uncontrollable passion for discovery inherent in the human spirit, to understand the unknown, to shatter boundaries and seek a single breath in that vast loneliness. Perhaps this is the purest motivation that drives us forward. But on the other side of the coin lie the ice-cold risks brought by this curiosity. If the universe is indeed that ruthless dark forest, then every step we take, every new frequency we launch must be weighed with extreme caution. Perhaps silence is not a sign of fear, but the most concrete manifestation of cosmic wisdom. Perhaps remaining mute is the one and only safest way to eternal survival. Yet this brings another painful question in its wake. If everyone sinks into that absolute silence, then no one will ever know another. In this case, the universe remains a prisoner of a loneliness that will last forever. This thought is just as unsettling and suffocating as the great danger itself, because as humanity, we do not wish to remain alone in that infinite void. But perhaps the true price of existing in the universe is to accept this magnificent loneliness like a shield. Perhaps the hardest part is establishing that delicate balance between these two extreme choices, neither being condemned to total silence, nor shouting uncontrollably into the void. Perhaps true wisdom is knowing exactly when to speak and when to remain quiet. This is possible not just through superior technology, but only through a profound awareness. Because the universe is not just a physical space, it is a colossal unknown. And as we move through this unknown, we must never forget that every decision we make will have a cosmic consequence. Perhaps that is why every frail signal we send to the sky is not just a message, but an irreversible risk. And that greatest question still waits unanswered in the dark. If one day we truly receive the answer we've been waiting for, will we truly be ready for it? And perhaps the most important thing among all these questions is not to reach a definitive and final answer, because the universe does not always offer us clear-cut responses. Sometimes it only leaves us with vast questions, and these questions stay with us far longer than we ever imagined. That deep silence we feel when we look up at the night sky, might not actually be a desolate void. Perhaps it is a delicate balance we have yet to notice, an invisible cosmic agreement, or a piece of a magnificent order that our minds cannot yet grasp. And the most fascinating part is that this story is still being written, because we are a very new species within this ancient universe. We do not know everything yet. We have not unraveled every mystery, but still, we continue to look, to listen with bated breath, and to passionately explore the unknown. Perhaps this is the purest essence of being human, to take one more step toward the great unknown, despite the fear. But now we know very well that this progression must be blended not just with blind curiosity, but with a profound awareness, because the universe is much larger than our dreams, far more complex, and perhaps much quieter than we think. And right in the heart of this deafening silence, we exist, as that tiny species that listens, reflects, and tries to understand. Perhaps at this very second, somewhere else in the universe, someone is doing exactly the same thing. Perhaps they too are looking up at their foreign sky, whispering the same questions, and listening to the same deep silence, but no one speaks. Because perhaps whispering that first word is the most fatal mistake one could make in this dangerous forest. This is why the universe chooses to remain silent, and we, in the embrace of that ancient stillness, continue to write our own story in silence.